People don't always have to make a lot of effort to move through temporary space, so our main character simply crossed the road. The guy walked onto the sidewalk and a truck immediately passed behind him, but he didn't even notice. The guy had a bag of groceries in one hand and a phone in the other, and instead of looking around, the guy looked into it. There were many photos of cute cats on the phone screen, and the guy couldn't take his eyes off them with admiration. The guy suddenly imagined what it would be like if the cats were huge, he would be lying right on top of him. The guy happily thought that this would be ideal, unfortunately, most likely impossible. While he was thinking about this, his eyes were closed, and this is exactly what is needed for the transition between worlds. Pieces from another time began to appear around the unsuspecting guy, when suddenly a huge cat with different eyes appeared in front of him, and spikes on the back. The guy looked at the animal in front of him with wide eyes and tried to understand what was happening. A huge white mouth, inside of which there were huge sharp white teeth, the fangs especially stood out. In the strange space, sparks seemed to fly from the huge cat in different directions. One of the cat's huge paws pinned the guy to the ground, equally large and sharp claws protruded from this paw. They were right in front of the guy's face. He thought that if he were in the manga, a system alert would have already appeared. And just at that moment, a code began to appear around, attracting the guy's attention to itself. A sign appears next to the guy saying that the system has started working. The guy was very happy that now he would have his own system. Then an inscription appeared on the sign that the owner had been found and the binding to the 0% carrier began. The guy, who was wearing a huge clawed paw at that moment, began to worry that he might not last long. While the guy was trying with all his might to hold his paw, he waited for the system to finish loading. At 80%, it seemed to the guy that this had been going on for a very long time. At 90%, the guy had already begun to beg the system to hurry up, because he could no longer hold back his paw. And now the number 99 is shown on the flying window and it seemed that everything was already over. But it is at this moment that the second paw of a huge cat appears in front of the window with interest. And with a slight movement of his claws, the cat breaks the system's alert in half. The guy watches what is happening in horror. He watches as small pieces of the alert fall to the floor. The guy screams at a fallen sign that shows no signs of life. When a new alert appears right above it, but in red, the sign says that system protection is being activated. Some strange ribbons with inscriptions appear around the cat and the guy. These ribbons were several circles that held the cat inside them, as if they were going to seal it. The guy watched in surprise as the cat glowed and seemed to begin to disappear. Before the guy's eyes, a huge cat turns into a beautiful girl with long hair and ears on her head. He rose from the floor, his whole face was covered in small abrasions after a fight with the paw of a huge cat. The girl's hair was snow white and very long, they were gathered into a ponytail, and it dangled in the air while the girl was lowered to the ground. The girl was surrounded by light and the seals fell directly on the surprised guy. The girl had the same multicolored eyes as the cat had earlier, there were also cat ears and a tail. The girl had beautiful gold shoes on her feet, and she herself was in a red and gold swimsuit. She sank directly onto the thighs of the guy sitting on the floor, and they looked at each other in surprise. When a new warning sign catches their attention, she says the binding is complete. Various strange seals again appear around the couple, they illuminate everything around with orange light. The same orange light illuminates the village, and confirms the arrival of Yu Ming in the world. An orange light rushes towards a small thatched house and transports the guy there. The guy is in this world in a state of mind. He carefully examined his hands and realized that he was now in a different world. The guy began to quickly and carefully look around the room in an attempt to find a beautiful girl. But instead, the guy's attention was drawn to the man who was in the room, and he decided to deal with this first. The man looked dead, but was very handsome and expensively dressed, he had long blue hair. The guy in the form of a spirit extends his hand to the body with thoughts, what if he manages to inhabit this body? But this idea is interrupted by a loud scream, someone shouts that Ben de Miao is finally free. The spirit turns around at the scream and sees a small white cat in the opposite corner of the room. He was a white cat with different eyes, and he had a bell on his neck. The cat is trying to fight. However, it only looks funny and looks at its paws. The cat realizes that she has weakened. The guy watched the strange actions of the cat, and he comes to the conclusion that she is also a strange speaker. The cat points at the guy with one of its clawed fingers, and he calls the guy his slave. The guy was surprised to hear such a statement, but the cat continues to tell him to obey her. The guy didn't understand what was going on in this room and what this strange cat wanted from him. The cat pointed at the guy and ordered him to immediately come to her. The guy in the form of a spirit pointed to himself and asked if she really wanted him to come over. They spent some time in this awkward position and both felt ridiculous. Finally, the cat cleared her throat to move her from this point. She enthusiastically said that her name is Zhou Ku and she is the wisest demon, so now he is not a slave. Ben de Miao said he should listen to her. After all, if she has a piece of meat, then the guy has soup. The guy stretched out his arms, hugging the cat on both sides, and I decided to introduce myself. His name was Meng Changji. The guy picked up the cat and admitted that he had a peculiarity. The cat was delighted and said that as a mistress she was supposed to know everything about the slave. Meng Changji raised one of his hands up, and he said that he loves cats terribly. The guy looked scary as he slowly raised his hand towards Zhou Ku. The cat in the guy's arms thought about it, and then realized that the guy is a cat person. The cat's eyes widened in horror at the situation she was in. She shouted that she was not afraid of bullying, and if he thought that his love would make her feel bad, then he was right. The guy squeezed the cat, which continued to scream so that he would not dare to loosen his stumps. She warned that Ben de Miao would not forgive him for this. The cries of Ben de Miao could be heard from the small house, which attracted the attention of even the birds. In the end, the cat lay defeated, all squeezed on the floor, and she asked not to touch her again. Meng Changji looked at the cat with emotion, and he asked if this was the wisest demon. The guy picked up the cat again, and he said that now she is his pet pussy. He looked at the disgruntled cat, and he decided that now he would sell the name too. He settled on Jojo. Ben de Miao didn't like the new name. She promised that when she becomes stronger she will definitely remember this to him. Their argument was interrupted by a warning sign appearing. She announced that the system was starting to work. Meng Changji looked at the surprised cat and thought that it might have something to do with the system. There was a rumble of the door opening, which attracted their attention. A man was bringing a girl into the room. The man pushed her inside and shouted that if she did not save this man, she would repeat his fate. The girl was unhappy with this state of affairs, but she just straightened her clothes and proudly walked inside. She approached the almost dead body that lay in the corner of the house, and the cat laughed at the guy that he had missed the best chance for revival. The man continued to shout at the girl. He called her Dr. Li, and ordered her not to try to think the worst. The girl turned to the man and said that she was a doctor who had promised herself to cure everyone. She took the guy's hand and began to take his pulse. He was very weak, and she realized that the soul had long left the body. The doctor continued the examination and came to the conclusion that during his lifetime his physical body and soul were separated. The girl did not know much about such things and decided to quickly return the soul before the body died. The man did not understand anything the girl said and began shouting at her to immediately save the guy. The girl took out a small red ball from her sleeve and offered to use it. She brought the red pill to the victim's lips, and she tried to put it in his mouth. Ben de Miao sat on the guy's head, and she said that pills that can return the soul are good, but it's not enough to just put it in your mouth, and he won't swallow it himself. Both the cat and the guy were surprised by what the girl was going to do. The cat asked what she was going to do. They didn't expect that the girl would actually decide to kiss him in order to make him swallow the pill. After this, the guy and the cat began to be pulled into the body, which they tried to revive. They didn't understand why this was happening. The next moment the guy already felt himself in some kind of body. He began to slowly try to open his eyes, and when he finally succeeded, he saw in front of him a girl who had previously kissed the body of a guy into which they had been sucked. The girl breathed out a sigh of relief when she saw that the guy had come to his senses, and the pill really helped. Meng Changji was very surprised when he saw the cat flying in the air. Ben de Miao flew right next to the girl's head and waved her paws in her direction. The guy leaned closer to the girl and the cat and began to call Jojo, but when he saw the girl's surprised look, he stopped. She slightly tilted her head, looked carefully and asked the guy who Zhou was. The guy at first wanted to explain who Zhou was, but then he suddenly changed his mind, and he shrugged it off that he had not yet come to his senses. Ben de Miao continued to be indignant at why this girl couldn't see her. The guy asked the cat to stop doing this. Meng Changji extended his hand to the girl and began to ask how he could thank her, but she immediately moved away from him. The guy didn't have time to touch her, and the doctor stood up and began shouting to the man that she had already saved him, and asked if she could leave. But the man who brought her was already closing the door. He said that the boss ordered her to remain next to him in case he suddenly died again. The girl's eyes filled with horror at the realization of the situation. The door closed with a loud bang. Despite the fact that the girl immediately rushed to the exit, it was already closed. The girl knocked on the door with all her might and shouted that they had lied to her. Their agreement did not sound right. But from behind the doors there was only laughter and ridicule. Everyone in the room was annoyed by what had happened, each for their own reason. Ben de Miao was very angry because she did not have a physical body. She said that if she had it, she would definitely hit this man. The guy thought about it and realized that he needed to understand the situation as quickly as possible and collect as much information as possible. At that moment, Zhou Zhou began poking him on the cheek, trying to attract the attention of the thoughtful guy. When she succeeded, she pointed to the girl and said that she looked at him very nicely. But when the guy looked at her, he saw exactly the opposite expression on the girl's face. Meng Changji decided to distract himself from what was happening in the room and try to restore the memory of the owner of this body. He remembered that the owner of this body was also named Meng Changji. He was the eldest son in the family of a wealthy businessman. However, this guy did not want to study in happily visited brothels. He was a frequent visitor to all the bars in the city, and 10 days ago, when he was walking, he was attacked by a bunch of bandits. As it turned out, he was kidnapped by the most famous bandits in the area. Their leader was Een Roland. The guys tied her up and dragged her straight to her. She sat on the throne and watched the guy. The anticipation of earning money from such a big catch was visible on her face, but the Meng family did not react to the kidnapping. Then the group decided that the best way out of the situation would be to sell it, but their plans were thwarted. After all, last night a dark shadow unexpectedly came to the guy's house. This dark shadow mercilessly took the guy's soul and left only the dying body of Meng Changji with the bandits. Meng Changji couldn't figure out what kind of monster this was. It sounded like something out of a village fairy tale. Ben de Miao guessed that by monster he meant the weakest type of demon, the mountain demon. She said that it would be better to improve her abilities so that there would be no problems with this in the future. The guy realized that he knew nothing at all about this world, but the cat hastened to calm him down and said that he could rely on her. Zhou Zhou began to tell that there are 10 levels that can harden his body. Every time he passes a level his strength will increase. After these words from Ben de Miao, the guy remembered that he still didn't know what his system was capable of. He hastened to correct it. The guy called up the system tablet and read the data that was already there. Ben de Miao noticed that she had already been listed as one of his assistants. Zhou Zhou noticed that the guy already had 3 experience points. She assumed it was because he ate a rare pill. The cat explained to the guy that for every 10 experience points he would gain 1 level. Meng Changji asked what kind of glasses section this was. The system explained that it was a general consumable that he would be able to use to enhance the wearer's strength. The guy wondered how he could get these points, and the system explained that he would receive them if he performed a sudden action. The guy thought about it and realized that glasses would appear in large quantities if he understood how the system worked. Meng Changji told Zhou Zhou that he thought the point system was a little old-fashioned and stupid, but apparently that was because the system was related to her. The cat got angry because of this. Ben de Miao said that she was a demon who was created through 4 cycles. The guy asked if creating demons was really such a complicated process. Zhou Zhou became a little nervous and admitted that it was because she was now in a state of spirit that had lost strength. She forgot a lot. Something caught the guy's attention. He saw that in the description of the task it was called surprise, and an idea came to him. He got up from the floor, showed the cat a thumbs up and said that he had found a solution to the problem. He walked towards the door, folding his arms across his chest, and he shouted for the old man to quickly open the door and go inside. The man angrily opened the door to the guy that he had done this here. The guy tilted his head down a little and slowly began to say that he didn't even know how to say it. Then he fell silent, raised his hand up and forcefully slapped the man in front of him in the face. After that, he received 1 point as a reward. The slap in the face made the man very angry. He raised his fist and threatened the guy with death. But Meng Changji did not flinch and asked why he thought they were ordered to capture him. The guy fearlessly declared that if a man is not afraid to die, let him try to ruin his face. The man froze in confusion and tried to understand what he meant. Is there any other reason why the boss ordered him to be caught? Meng Changji began to advance and said why keep a hostage who cannot be blackmailed and why they called the most famous doctor to cure him. Suddenly the man stepped back and started shouting that this couldn't be happening. In a panic, he pointed his finger at the guy and shouted that the boss couldn't fall in love with him. The guy received another point from the system and smugly told the man that he was not as stupid as he seemed. He praised him for quickly guessing. The man began to bow to the guy and ask for his forgiveness. For this he received another point. Ben de Miao watched in shock what was happening, and Meng Changji was very pleased with himself. Zhou Zhou tried to understand how this was even possible, but it was difficult for her to come to terms with this. Thanks to his oratory skills, after a while all his subordinates served Meng Changji. They did absolutely everything that the guy did not order them, and for almost every such action he received points. He ordered them to change foods that he did not like, as well as alcohol if it was not to his taste. Ben de Miao asked that in order to earn points you had to yell at the servants, but then why did the points stop appearing? The guy explained to the cat that the main thing in getting points is that the interlocutor does not expect such behavior from him. The cat asked what to do now that they were used to it, and Meng Changji turned his gaze to the girl who was sitting in the corner. The guy said that he would not receive anything more from them, so now it's the girl's turn. Ben de Miao asked why now if before that he ignored her all the time. To this the guy replied that her name was Li Feilei, she was a famous doctor and despised the owner of this body. Ben de Miao questioned his determination to talk to the girl. After all, she hates him, but the guy calmed her down and said that he had a plan. He approached the girl and brought her a whole chicken carcass. She was very surprised when she saw this. Meng Changji said that thanks to her, he is fine and there is drink and food here. He asked if she could help him. Zhou Zhou watched this action in admiration, and she said, no matter how badly she treats him, as long as he uses food as bait, the girl will not be able to refuse. The girl turned away and said that she only saved him because she was a doctor. The cat was upset that the plan didn't work. But Meng Changji was already finishing his chicken leg. He said she misunderstood him. He had already eaten everything on the plate, and he said that he only said about help, but did not have time to finish. He continued that he wanted to ask the girl to put the dishes away. She didn't expect this, and the guy got a point. Zhou Zhou was shocked, and she asked how he was going to make friends with her in this way. Meng Changji said that he did not intend to be friends with her, he just needed glasses. The cat looked upset and asked if this was too cruel to the girl. The guy replied that in a short period of time he collected a lot of points for improvement, and this is success, and maybe someday apologize to her. He turned his gaze back to the girl, and he invited her to go clean up. Li Feilei looked at him dissatisfied for a while the guy was already looking forward to his prize. Afterwards, the girl exhaled, took the plate and went to fulfill Meng Changji's request. The guy was surprised by this turn of events. Ben de Miao said that not a single point was added. She asked if the system was broken. But Meng Changji that it is not the system, but the fact that they met the master. Zhou Zhou asked what kind of master he was. The guy explained that the girl was taller than him, so she was able to predict his actions, and the cat realized that they did not receive points because the girl expected such behavior from them. Suddenly there was a loud cry asking what was happening here. The guy and the cat turned towards the sound. A girl with red hair stood in the aisle, surrounded by her subjects, and everyone worshipped her. This girl turned out to be the head of Yin Rolan. She displeasedly turned to one of the servants and asked him what he had done here. The head looked at the servants, who boasted to her that they had created the most favorable conditions for her son-in-law. The woman didn't understand what they were talking about at all, so she asked them who they meant. At this moment, Meng Changji's voice was heard. He said that they were talking about him. He began to praise the beauty of the girl standing. The servants watched this altercation and began to doubt that they were really together. But Meng Changji the city, and it was stupid to get into a fight without even knowing how much improvement points would be reasonable. Meng Changji smiled and said that now is the time to strengthen. Ben de Miao's improvement. Updates poured in one after another. Zhou Zhou watched the invincible up 1 unit of experience short of the next achievement. The guy looked at this carefully and thought that she looked confused and asked why she was helping him if she couldn't stand him. Li Feilei admitted that she really hated him, but as a doctor, she had to help the sick, and she warned that he would owe her money later. The guy watched her go to her corner and thought that she was speaking too straightforwardly. The guy squeezed the bottle given to him in his hands and thought that he would definitely thank her. At first glance it was a calm, clear night, the stars and moon brightly illuminated everything around. Ain Rulon sat on her throne with a bare skin under her feet. She twirled the dagger in her hands and thought about everything in the world. She twirled the knife in her hands and noticed how boring it was to sit here doing nothing all day long. Then she felt something strange, and she couldn't understand why she felt like something was about to happen. Ain Rulon heard the knocking and realized that something had happened. She stood up from her throne in anticipation. Two people appeared in front of her, and one person was lying on a stretcher. The men asked to see what happened to him. The woman came up, touched his face and realized that he was attacked by a mountain demon. She said that, unfortunately, nothing can be done. One man noticed that there was a mountain demon in the mountains, despite the fact that there is a strong magical barrier there, and the second one assured him that it was nothing to worry about and was easy to deal with. He said that when they were in the mountains, they gathered in groups and they had sentries who made sure that the demon did not get too close. In such cases, the demons could not stand it for long and soon left on their own. An evil smile appeared on the head's face, and she said that first he devoured the soul of the hostage, and now he was harming her family. And she shouted for the guards to gather everyone. In addition to the people who were guarding the hostage, 5 people gathered and went to search the mountain. At this time, Meng Changji was meditating and gathering strength to escape. Zhou Zhou sadly asked if they couldn't start running away right now, and the guy told her that she needed to wait for the right moment. The cat began to roll on the floor and complain that she could not and did not want to wait any longer. Just at that moment, they heard other servants addressing the guards and saying that they were leaving for the mountains. Meng Changji realized that this was the perfect moment to escape and stood up from his seat. Then they heard one of the servants asking them to come inside and relax. After all, the head spoke about the hostage, but did not say anything about the girl. The guy realized that someone wanted to go inside and decided to wait a little. The door opened and an ugly man looked inside. He said that he had heard very much about Dr. Li's beauty and came to see it for himself. When a man stood in front of a girl, she said she knew what he wanted to do, and this will be considered an insult to her. She warned that if he touched her, she would kill herself. The girl was very angry, although a little scared, and said that without her the hostage would die, so if he really wants to do it, let him try. The man shouted at her that it was all a lie, and began to untie his belt and come closer. He continued to scream and extended his hands to the girl, intending to continue the work he had started. But he didn't have time to reach and was hit by Meng Changji and fell unconscious. The guy shook off his hands after the blow, as if nothing had happened, and turned to the girl. He asked her if in such a situation it would not have been better to ask him for help. The girl looked in surprise at the guy who extended his hand to her. The guy shook off his hands after the blow, as if nothing had happened, and turned to the girl. He asked her if in such a situation it would not have been better to ask him for help. The girl looked in surprise at the guy who extended his hand to her. However, the guy did not receive any points for this. Li Feilei looked away and said that they were not so close that she could hope for his help. It was better not to have hoped than to be disappointed. But the girl also bowed to the guy and said that in any case she was grateful to him for his help. Ben de Miaoen noticed that it was easier to learn to fly than to get points from her. Meng Changji completely agreed with her on this. Then the guy turned to the entrance, and he shouted, insulting the guards outside and attracting their attention. The strongest guard appeared at the door. He saw his comrade unconscious and asked the hostage how he dared to touch him. The guy arrogantly said that he was already tired, and he asked him and the rest of the guards to let them calmly go down the mountain. The guard was angered by the hostage's arrogance, and he attacked him with his fists in a fit of anger. But Meng Changji easily dodged the blow, even though it was fast, but now that his level is higher, he can dodge them with ease. She noted that this was logical. After all, the guy is level 9, and the strongest of the guards is level 6. The rest of the guards came in response to the noise. They watched Meng Changji and Ashang fight, and they tried to understand why they were fighting, and how this guy could even evade the blows of their colleague. Continuing to dodge the blows, the guy received 4 points and thought what a pity that there were too few spectators here. Then he stopped abruptly and looked straight into the man's eyes. He said that he was giving him a chance and would not shy away. And Shan was very angry. He thought that he could not lose in front of his comrades, so he would put all his strength into the blow. With screams that the guy had found his death, the man swung his hand towards Meng Changji. The guy stood calmly in place, and then he said that it was not bad, but there is one thing. It seemed that not even a second had passed when the guy found himself right in the face of the guard. He continued his sentence and said it was too slow. With one blow, Meng Changji defeated the guard and earned himself more points. He turned to the trembling guards in the doorway, and he invited them to enter, promising that he would not do anything. After all, as long as they behave well, then he has no reason to be a devil. Meng Changji looked ominous. The guards were trembling with fear and trying to understand when he managed to become so strong. In the end, everyone decided to give up. The guy got a couple more points, and tied up the remaining guards and ordered them to look after those who were sleeping. He was sure that when the head of the clan found them he would already be far away. Zhou Zhou said that they received 9 points from those bandits, but she can't figure out how to get points from a girl. The guy chuckled that this still bothers her. Meng Changji turned to the girl and stated that he wanted to protect her from the bandits and offered to escape together. The girl listened in surprise to the guy about his intention to protect her. Suddenly, Meng Changji came up with an idea on how to get points with the help of a girl. He grabbed her hands and pressed closer, or to say that he is loved by many girls, but is still not married. With a sweet smile, he said that the girl helped him save money when she gave him his medicine. Li Feilei looked a little embarrassed and surprised, and this expression on her face helped the guy earn half a point. Ben de Miao lamented this reason. Is it even possible to earn less than 1 point? But the guy encouraged her to see the good side of it. Meng Changji with an outstretched hand invited her to run away with him. The girl silently looked at the outstretched hand and, in the end, began to pull her hand towards him. They took each other's hand and Li Feilei finally agreed to run away with Meng Changji. The moon illuminated the long mountain path, and Meng Changji turned to the girl. He admitted that while they were going down the mountain, he had a question for her. The guy noticed that Li Feilei was not at all surprised when he beat those guys. Ben de Miao confirmed that she did not add a single point. The girl admitted that when she became a doctor, she learned 4 ways of knowing a patient and then learned fortune-telling. Meng Changji and Zhou Zhou did not expect to hear such an answer. The guy turned to her, repeating her words. Ben de Miao realized that she predicts a person's vitality, and then roughly estimates his abilities. Having heard this information from Zhou Zhou, the guy realized that it determines combat capabilities and it is impossible to play dirty games with her. Li Feilei continued to say that at first she was unable to determine the guy's potential, so she could not judge the specific strength. But despite this, during her examination, she noticed that his level was higher than that person's power level, therefore, victory was expected. The guy looked at the girl who was walking next to him, and finally, I understood how she was able to predict his victory. Ben de Miao said that she can determine a person's experience with precision, so she is better than Li Feilei. Suddenly something caught the girl's attention, and she stopped, carefully examining something ahead. When Meng Changji asked what it was, the girl told him that there was a security post next, and although the head of the clan ordered to search the entire mountain. But the security guards were not allowed to leave their post, therefore, at the place where the last bridge began, there were 3 guards. Ben de Miao looked at the guy's levels, while Meng Changji and Li Feilei were hiding behind a rock ledge. The guy looked out from cover and Zhou Zhou said that the strength of 2 guards was at the 2nd level and 1 at the 5th. Ben de Miao said that he could handle them with 1 hand. The guy agreed, but came to the conclusion that they needed to be brought together. As he tried to figure out how to do this, a girl caught his attention. He realized that he would have to ask her for help, so as not to make a noise. The girl was surprised when she heard his request. Each of the 3 guards was minding their own business. The night was very quiet and calm. Suddenly they heard a voice from behind the rock. One of the guys said it looked a lot like a woman's. The guys tensed up. One of them asked whether girls not from their camp might end up in the mountains. They approached the place where the girl's beautiful voice was heard, and they parted the tall grass to see what was behind it. Then they could see what was happening behind the grass. It turned out that there really was a girl there. They noticed that she had ears and a tail. A beautiful girl sat and sang that she wanted a man nearby who could melt her heart. One of the guys said that they say that this is a mountain fairy fox. She is indescribably beautiful and besides, single men can get help from her. The girl continued to sing. When she began to hide behind the table, one of the guards began to run after her and ask her to wait. The 2 remaining guys grabbed his hands, and they didn't let him run after the girl. The guys started fighting because of this. They tried to figure out who would stay to guard the bridge and who would go to the girl. Suddenly a man's leg appeared in their field of vision. This made the guards very surprised. While Dr. Li examined her makeshift ears, Meng Changji boasted about how well they worked together the first time. The guards, who had already been beaten by each other, threatened him that now for his deception they would do something to him that he could not even imagine. A lot of points began to come to the guy. Meng Changji raised his hand to strike and asked him to surprise him, and he would look at it with pleasure. After a short amount of time, all the guards were defeated, and our main character earned 20 new points. They were just enough to improve it, so the guy hurried to launch it. A notification arrived saying that the new level would be available in 100 seconds. Both the guy and the cat were disappointed that for 100 points they would have to wait. They were already in front of the bridge and were about to enter it. Meng Changji told the girl that this was the last obstacle on their way. The guy was holding a torch in his hands. He turned to the girl and wanted to tell her something. But he was interrupted by a sudden gust of wind, which extinguished the torch and made them tremble. Ben de Miao screamed and warned the guy that there was a monster behind him. He told her that he already understood this and was covering Li Feilei with himself. At that moment, he met a burning gaze from the darkness, and a trembling ran through his body. In front of them was a giant bloodthirsty gorilla. A murderous aura emanated from her. The guy shouted that she had enormous power, and Ben de Miao noticed that their abilities were not enough to defeat the mountain demon. What stood before them was more than just a gorilla. It was a real red-haired gibbon. Dr. Li asked how this monkey could appear in their area, since they do not have suitable bananas. The guy noted that this demon was very different from his memories. Yi Zhou Zhou explained that a demon could take possession of a corpse. In theory it wasn't that scary, but when it's a red-haired gibbon, everything changes. The cat noticed that this was the smallest one she had seen. But even so, Meng Changji was beyond his strength. After all, a blow that can throw a person 6 meters will not be felt by her. The demon in front of them became enraged. The guy continued to cover the girl with him and hoped that he could cope with him. If you believe everyone who has encountered the mountain demon, then 6 people are enough to cope with it. But one of the 6-person squads that the clan leader sent was dead. Yin Rulan stood next to the corpses of her subordinates, and I understood that there are exceptions everywhere. She was very angry, and she couldn't believe that one mountain demon could do such a thing. Meanwhile, the demon in the gibbon's body smelled human flesh, and not just humans, but women. Li Feilei was reflected in the red eyes of the mountain demon. He saw her only as his prey. Zhou Zhou was surprised that the demon spoke and asked if he really had intelligence. She noticed that now they were no match for him. Meng Changji asked how long it would take to improve. Ben de Miao replied that another 30 seconds, but she was not sure that even then they could handle him. After all, this was not an unusual mountain demon, but very strong, large and most likely a little intelligent. The guy wondered what it was around the demon that was like a dark fog, and he felt it when he fought last time. This made Meng Changji very worried. After all, he didn't know how to deal with it. The girl came out from behind the guy, and she said that he couldn't cope with him, and his goal was her. She asked him to leave so that at least one would survive. But the guy intercepted her and moved closer to her, and he asked if she had really decided to write him off. Dr. Li asked if he had an ace up his sleeve. The guy replied that he didn't look like a person who would just sacrifice himself for the sake of others. He told her that since this demon was not in the plans, he would charge her extra for the protection. When the girl remained standing in place, he hurried her and ordered her to leave quickly. Next she heard that she would have to kiss him as payment. The strange demon saw that the girl was starting to leave him, and some pathetic guy was standing in his way. He gave chase, intending to destroy everything that stood in his way to the woman. But Meng Changji was not going to let him pass so easily, and gathering all the strength in his fist, I shouted to him to keep his eyes open. The blow hit the strange demon right between the eyes, while the guy was screaming that they weren't done yet. After the blow, the demon shook his head a little, and the guy noticed that the barrier seemed to deprive him of some of his strength. Meng Changji asked Zhou Zhou if he could finish her off if he threw her off the cliff while holding back the demon's blow. The cat said that this aura acts as a very weak barrier, but even through such a barrier, he can only break through if his strength doubles. The guy was thrown several meters away from the demon's blow, while Ben de Miao said that falling from here could harm the demon in this case. Meng Changji wiped the blood from his face and said that then everything would be fine. Li Feilei was already on the other side and shouted to him that he could start. The mountain demon in the body of a red-haired gibbon with glowing red eyes screamed loudly and sprayed saliva in different directions. The guy beckoned him to follow him and walked into the middle of the bridge, and the demon followed him in a fit of anger. Zhou Zhou tearfully asked the guy to quickly do what he had in store so that he didn't plant it there. The guy ordered Ben de Miao to watch carefully, jumping up and breaking the bridge. Li Feilei and Zhou Zhou looked with horror on their faces at what the guy was doing, realizing that he would die if he fell. And the guy, screaming, breaking and smashing, began to fly down the cliff, after breaking the bridge. The girl looked at the guy's fall and tears began to appear in her eyes. She said that he was not capable of such a thing. As Meng Changji flew down, he noticed that the reward had arrived. Ben de Miao noticed that even now the girl only gave half a point. The next moment, the dark aura of a mountain demon began to thicken around the guy's leg. Ben de Miao panicked that now there was no way they could escape from him. The demon pulled them closer to strike. But at that moment, Meng Changji also raised his hand to retaliate. While he was flying at the demon, he tried to concentrate as much power as possible in his fist. And when their fists met, a huge shock wave formed around them. Zhou Zhou was shocked that this time he was able to cope with the demon and might even be stronger. The guy received a notification from the system that he had obtained the first stage of power, and the guy felt the strength increasing in his body. While the guy was fighting, he asked Zhou Zhou to use the remaining points to improve right now. Ben de Miao hurried to fulfill the order and said that one improvement required 2 points, and in total they had 19 points. She shared her worries that she was afraid that they might not have enough points to defeat the demon. But the guy assured her that everything would be fine. After all, he had increased strength to break through this barrier, and his blow plus a fall from a height should put an end to everything. Zhou Zhou happily agreed to this, and the guy in flight opened his palm and began to concentrate his power in it. The decision was made to strike now, and he collided with the red-haired gibbon in the air. Light seemed to be pouring from the guy's hand, and there was a victorious smile on his face. Meng Changji's eyes reflected the red light from the strange mountain demon's aura. And then, with the strongest blow of his life, the guy hit the mountain demon. Meng Changji shouted that he would destroy him, and the demon flew down the cliff with terrifying force. In the crevice lay spears, skeletons, fragments of a bridge, various swords, and it all looked like a massacre site. Meng Changji didn't think there would be something like this. Because of this, he didn't know what to say. The guy was beaten quite badly and looked at this landscape, felt that war would always exist. They sat on the defeated demon and Ben de Miao said that he had a strange premonition. Meng Changji asked her what happened, and the cat said that she felt nearby a force similar to the guy, which, most likely, was the missing part of the system. The guy thought about it. If there are many unlocked functions in this system, if he finds the missing parts, he will be able to unlock them. Meng Changji's attention was attracted by a strange stream of strange wind that was coming from somewhere behind him. The guy walked in his direction and said that this wind was not like normal. Ben de Miao noticed that despite the fact that the wind is not so strong, it is too pressing and looks like magic. As they came closer to it, they realized that this breath belonged to a beast from the city of spirits and that a treasure was buried somewhere nearby. Zhou Zhou explained that this is the wind of expulsion and it is basically incapable of destroying anything, however, it can carry people away. After that, they saw the ominous face of the beast. The wind currents were strong and swept them off their feet. Meng Changji realized that the beast was guarding the treasure and they could get it by fighting the guard, however, at the moment he was not strong enough. The wind grew stronger and the guy realized that he could no longer stand on his feet. The guy and Ben de Miao were suddenly lifted into the air and began to be carried away in an unknown direction. They were spun in the currents of the tornado, and the wind carried them away from the crevice. When the guy came to his senses, the sun was shining, and there were strange islands of earth around. Meng Changji was lying on the ground. When he opened one eye, he saw a girl on top of him. She had ears and different eyes, and the guy realized that this was Zhou Zhou in human form. The girl called him and gently touched the guy's cheek, but Meng Changji didn't hear what she said. The girl moved closer to his face. She looked very concerned about his condition. The next moment, the guy came to his senses because a real cat, Zhou Zhou, was sitting on him and hitting him in the face with its paws. When Ben de Miao saw that the guy woke up, she was very happy and said that the invigorating cat's claw technique was very effective. The guy took her off by the scruff of the neck, trying to understand that beauty and Zhou Zhou are one demon. He looked around and asked where they were now. That wind could have killed ordinary people, so we can say they were lucky. Ben de Miao winked at the guy and said that they were carried away not far from Xian Shan. Meng Changji exhaled and said that he needed to find a way first so that he could ask someone for help. They had been walking along the mountain path for quite some time. Meng Changji was already very tired. While he was walking along the road, he constantly stumbled, he constantly wanted to eat. Zhou Zhou said that when you move to a new level, the body consumes a lot of energy, so you need a lot of food. And besides this, they also ran away and then fought with a huge demon. While they were talking, the guy tripped over a stone, and they fell straight to the ground. They were indignant that during all the time they had not met a single person. Their stomachs were growling and they were so hungry that their stomachs hurt. They heard the ringing of a bell, and the guy thought he heard something. It was the grandfather who was leading the bull, and on this bull sat a little girl. The girl called her grandfather and showed him that someone was lying on the road. The man took a closer look and realized that his granddaughter was right. The girl looked at the guy's clothes and noticed that he was from a rich family. She wanted to help him. Meng Changji didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. His eyes closed on their own, and he blurrily saw an approaching figure. The girl held the guy's hand and smiled joyfully. She told her grandfather that the guy was not dead yet. The old man who saved Meng Changji was named Li Dali, and his granddaughter was Li Erzai. They were from Lijiakan village. The rest of their family passed away too early, so they became dependent on each other. Old man Li Dali smiled good-naturedly and asked him to eat and not be shy. When Meng Changji ate, Ben de Miao also ate. Because of the system, the guy and the demon were connected, and she felt the same as him. Li Erzai suggested that the guy take a glass of water and drink. Meng Changji thanked her sincerely and accepted the cup of water. The guy was very grateful to these people for finding him. He asked his grandfather if he knew how to get to the city of Xianshan. Grandfather knew and offered to take his cow, but Meng Changji thanked him and said that 8 miles was not that much for him, so he would get there himself. Li Erzai, with sparkling eyes, asked the guy if it was true that there was a lot of delicious food in Xianshan's village. The guy patted the joyful girl on the top of her head and said that if she likes to eat tasty food, then he will take her with him so that they can eat together. But Li Dali ordered his granddaughter not to cause unnecessary inconvenience to their guest. The girl was upset because of this. Meng Changji began to look for something in his pockets and said that he didn't even know how to repay them for their hospitality. He found a jade pendant and offered to take it as a token of gratitude, but grandfather refused because it was too expensive. Then the guy offered to go hunting and bring them some game. Li Dali agreed to this, but asked to be careful, because the rich might be attacked by Yin Rolan. Ben de Miao was surprised that they had been here for so long and still had not received a single point. Meng Changji told her that this is all because there are good people living here. The guy bowed, thanked him for his concern and promised that everything would be fine with him. He left the house and went west, so he got to the forest itself. There was a lot of game in the forest. He caught a wild boar and 2 pheasants. They were already returning to the village when they had a small argument with Ben de Miao. She wanted to try meat, but the guy told her it was impossible. Zhou Zhou hit Meng Changji on the head and said that if he eats, then she eats too. The guy laughed and promised to take some game with him. The guy's gaze was caught by something new and strange. This clearly wasn't the case when they went into the forest. Near the house there was a cart that was familiar to the original owner of the body. The man kicked the vase with all his might, and he shouted that there was nothing there. The man broke another bowl and saw that it was also empty. He started shouting at the old man, trying to find out where he hid the money. Li Erzai was hiding behind her grandfather. Li Dali asked the bandits what they needed. After all, they paid them 3 days ago. The man smiled evilly and said that if they ate 3 days ago, do they need to eat today too? The man also said that everyone in the village had paid the rent, only this family didn't pay enough. He asked how he could explain this to the owner. Grandfather admitted that they gave away their last money and had nothing left. However, the man did not believe him and said that then he would find a way out himself. One of the man's assistants grabbed the girl, and he offered to sell her to a brothel to repay the debt. The grandfather threw himself on his knees in front of the man and began to beg him to let his granddaughter go. He promised to do anything. Well, the man just hit Li Dali so hard that he started bleeding from his mouth. Li Erzai watched with tears in her eyes while she was held by someone else's hands. She bit the man who was holding her wrist with all her strength and anger. The man pushed the girl away from him and shouted at her that she would pay for this. She ran up to her grandfather, who was lying on the floor, and asked if he was okay. Grandfather promised that he would die, but would not allow them to take her. The man looked irritably at this couple and said that if he so wants to sacrifice himself, then so be it. The man's assistant began to stretch his hands, preparing to give Lee Dolly a good beating. But just at that moment someone else's strong blow flew into his face. He was thrown aside with such force that the wall of the house broke where he landed. Meng Changji stood in a fighting stance and asked the bandits if they were sure that everything would be like this. The main man looked at the guy in shock and tried to understand how this happened. He didn't even have time to notice anything. Li Erzai was very happy when she saw who came. She told her grandfather that it was her brother who came to their aid. Meng Changji received 2 points as a reward, and he promised his grandfather that he would cope with the bandits. Ben de Miao was very angry. One of the bandits tried to intimidate Meng Changji, and he said that they are the people of the 3rd chapter, so the guy must kneel down and beg for forgiveness. But these words had no effect on Meng Changji and he slapped one of the bandits, and he asked what would happen to him for this. The humiliated guy held his lost tooth in his hands, his face was covered in blood, and he said that the head would not let him go. But Meng Changji suggested that he take better care of himself and struck again. The bandit lost consciousness, and this upset Meng Changji because he didn't even have time to warm up. But then the guy looked back and saw that he had forgotten about the main bully of these bandits. The man tried to avoid a fight. He retreated and said that Meng Changji might offend the 3rd chief if he protected the Li family. But Meng Changji, with a smile on his face, said that he did not know who the 3rd head was and had not done anything wrong with his subordinates. The main man fell to his knees in front of the guy, and he began to justify himself, as if these two were to blame for everything. Ben de Miao was angry because they heard the man's voice and knew the truth. The demon despised such people. Meng Changji admitted that he is too good-natured, so if he asks for mercy, so be it. Ben de Miao was not happy with this. The main man thanked Meng Changji and hurried to crawl away before he changed his mind. And he himself was already mentally looking for someone to deal with him, but Meng Changji stopped him, and he asked if he gave permission to leave. Meng Changji said that only if the man fulfills 10,000 of his instructions, he can be free. The demon appreciated this move. The man, in shock, asked about the number of orders. Meng Changji said that since he didn't have enough, he could easily add up to 20,000. Ben de Miao said that this is not enough, but the guy assured her that he could always add more. Half a day passed and the sounds of hard work could be heard from the Li family's house. The guy said that since these people had harmed them, let them now work instead of livestock. Li Erzai supported the guy, and Meng Changji added that the bandits would not cause problems and they could be sent to another village. All 3 bandits were terribly beaten and, despite fatigue, continued to work the fields. Some guy ran to the Li family and asked them to leave as soon as possible in a panic. Li Dolly tried to calm the guy down and asked what happened. The young man said that the 3rd head of the village. Meng Changji asked who this head is, that they are all so afraid of him, and Zhou Zhou said that she would deal with him. The old man explained that his name was Tang Sanbao. 3 years ago his strength increased to the 2nd stage. Meng Changji asked why the government wouldn't do anything about him. How could he just go around and rob? But Grandpa explained that 2 years ago, he joined the Meng family and received the right to collect rent. The guy realized that he was simply using the authority of the Meng family. Grandfather wanted to listen to the guy and invite Meng Changji to come with them. But Meng Changji was no longer there and seemed to have disappeared. Tang Sanbao walked through the village, and he asked who beat his subordinates and helped old. He asked Zhou Zhou how many points they had. The demon said they had 180 points, and she asked if they could earn more. Meng Changji held a blade of grass in his mouth and told them had gone. One of his assistants brought his woman and their child in for questioning. The child. Tang Sanbao didn't believe the man, so he forcefully pulled him to his feet and he asked who he was and ordered them to go down immediately. The guy said that he appeared like a freak, called him wild. Meng Changji continued to stand on the roof and smile smugly, extremely angry, and he ordered him not to be insolent. In this fit of anger, he struck and calmed down Zhou Zhou. He was confident that they could handle it. A man from the crowd recognized this guy as the one who helped Li's family. Some suggested that he had returned to save them. Tang Sanbao called for a fight against him. His subordinates said it was time to beg for mercy. Meng Changji ordered them to shut up, and said that he thought that the Meng family should be above this. The guy said that the Meng mansion used to be famous for its kindness and justice, but now they cover up their vile actions with the name of the family and steal its honor. Meng Changji's speech like this won him a bunch of more points from the people in the village. Tang Sanbao's assistants sensed a frightening aura, but the head calmed them down and said that he could only throw around words. Evil Tang Sanbao said that he is part of the Meng family and represents its interests, and he raised his hand to strike. The third head ordered to bow before him, however, Meng Changji stood there and didn't even try to dodge. When Tang Sanbao's fist was already in front of him, the guy placed a jade pendant in front of him. Meng Changji held the pendant in front of him and said that the head should know what it is. Tang Sanbao froze without striking completely and exclaimed that this was a jade pendant. The guy introduced himself and stated that from now on he was depriving him of power on earth and now he did not represent the Meng family. Now all the residents looked at him with admiring eyes. They were confident that the eldest son of the Meng family would protect them. For such a reaction from the villagers, the guy received a bunch more points. Tang Sanbao looked at the guy in front of him with doubt and horror and could not believe that he was really the eldest son of the family. Meng Changji tossed the pendant in his hand and said that they could easily go to the mansion and make sure. But the third head said that he doesn't care who he is, and he began to concentrate energy in his hand in order to strike. He shouted with anger in his voice that even if he was the eldest son, he would die right here and now, and was about to hit the unarmed Meng Changji with the flame dragon. The eldest son tried to hold back the blow and for some time he even succeeded, but then the energy threw him back with great force. Everyone in the village was very worried about the eldest son of the Meng family. The assistants of the third head tried to convey that the eldest son of the family should not be killed, but he didn't listen to them. While they were discussing that they would have to kill all the witnesses, a strange sound was heard. Tang Sanbao turned around and saw Meng Changji with blue energy all around him. Ben de Miao congratulated them on their promotion. Meng Changji pushed himself away from his seat and asked if he was as strong as he said. The guy rushed to attack Tang Sanbao using the second level of strength. The eldest son of the Meng family knocked out his opponent with one punch, and he said that he could handle it without even training. After his victory over Tang Sanbao, his minions begged for mercy. They all promised to help the villagers. The three guys, who were already supposed to be running errands, were upset that the third chapter didn't save them. All the villagers began to approach Mr. Meng and thank him for saving him. Meng Changji said that just because he saved them from robbers does not mean that they can rely on him. Suddenly he took away the land charter for other purposes. An evil smile appeared on his face and they realized that having gotten rid of the tiger's paws, they had fallen into the wolf's mouth. He scared them to death. Meng Changji said with a cheerful smile that he would just take one beauty. De Miao looked at all the points they received for this conversation, and I tried to understand what kind of prize would be big if it was considered small. Thus, the eldest son of the Meng, after he trained Tang Sanbao's people to obey the villagers, he left the village and the Li family. They walked and complained to each other why they should tolerate such treatment. If we take into account the fate of the third chapter, then it is even worse. Meng Changji's and what improvements had occurred. Zhou Zhou said that first we need to find out the skill path of foundation, and then practice magic. Usually people temper their body and stimulate their own qi through bodily exercises. These types of exercises are not included in the Shanqi Sutra series of books. One of them is air, Tengshi. There was also an earth, Gongcheng. The next path was the birth of all things, Sang Long. There was also a constellation called Baihu. And the last two are Skin Ming's emptiness and Wan Qian's inner strength. Ben de Miao explained that the technique that Tang Sanbao studied was written based on the Deng snake. The demon boasted that she still remembered the contents of all 6 books, and she suggested that the guys start studying for an hour a day. But Meng Changji said that he was not interested, what caused Ben de Miao's indignation. The guy looked at her and asked what was the point of training when he could deal with a lot of problems with brute force. Plus the guy said that he doesn't see the point in strengthening the body, when you can just add a couple of points to improve the absorption of 9 basic physical activities. The demon agreed with him, and they heard the guys telling them that they had already arrived in Guanshan City. The guy looked out of the cart, and I saw the great city wall. He asked why a pale inscription appeared on it. Zhou Zhou explained that this inscription protects the city from demons, and then he heard someone ordering him to get out of the way. When he turned around, he saw that it was the returnees from the Hai family entering the city. Zhou Zhou asked who it was and why they were so arrogant, and the guy explained to her that the Hai family is the 3rd largest, and their families have conflicts. Ben de Miao asked how this was possible, and Meng Changji began to explain to her. But they were interrupted. They apologized for the disturbance and asked forgiveness for their rudeness. This was the eldest son of the Ji family. He was the eldest son of the first most influential family. Meng Changji got out of the cart and joked unpleasantly at their interlocutor. He expected to get points, but was only able to get this from the servants. Mr. Ji remained adamant. With this behavior, he surprised Ben de Miao and intrigued Meng Changji. The weather was good when they approached the extreme city of Sanshan. Ben de Miao warned the guy that all these people are quite strong. Changji said that the guards of the owner of this body were also strong. But the gentleman from the Ji family rode a white horse. He pulled alongside the cart and asked the young master's name. Zhou Zhou said that he had reached the 3rd level, and Changji introduced himself to Qingwu Ji and said that perhaps 500 years ago they were related. This suggestion offended Mr. Ji's mourners, but he himself just smiled and said that then they were connected. Mr. Ji asked what kind of cart this was, and Changji explained that they were members of a sect and trained this way. The guys were all sweaty and tired, but they confirmed this version. Changji asked not to look at them like that, because it was just training, and the guys started posing. Then Mr. Ji asked what the person behind was doing, explained to Changji that he practices hunger and endurance. He turned to the guys and asked them if this was so. All three nodded vigorously in confirmation of his words, and they said that the elder brother trains like this. Those accompanying the gentleman discussed that it is not surprising that there is a sect that practices violence against itself. Lord Ji bowed and invited them to come to Ji's house after entering the city. He said they could become friends. Meng Changji replied that he did not know how long he would stay here, and he looked at the separating horses. Suddenly the guy realized that he could still hear the conversation between Ji Qingwu and the others. The demon explained that it was because he purified the body 3 times. One of the guards told Mr. Ji that they didn't know where these guys came from or whether they came for the relics. Mr. Ji winked at his guard, and he told him to tell everything later. Meng Changji rode in his carriage and wondered what these relics were. He came to the conclusion that Ji Qingwu is very attentive. The aura began to thicken around the guy again, and he ordered to move. When they reached the city of Sanshan, it was already dark, but Meng Changji did not go home straight away. First, he needed to visit 3 places, and send a sincere blessing. He released the 3 boys to wait for orders. In the end, he didn't let him see his family. Each of the 3 had their own family. He and Tang Sanbao came to his house, and Changji asked him how he was left without a family. Tang Sanbao sat on his knees in front of the guy and vowed to tell him everything that interested him. Meng Changji said that even though he recognized him as a member of the Meng family, he still tried to kill him. How dare he dare to do this? Tang Sanbao said that this is all Mr. Meng's new wife, Madame Lu. The demon was shocked that his second mother could want to harm him, but the guy asked not to make hasty conclusions. Tang Sanbao began his story. He was called to the mansion 10 days ago and ordered to look for the guy outside the city, and if he found him, he would kill him. Lady Lu gave him jade bodies as a reward for his action. Meng Changji thought that there was only one jade body in their family. Ben de Miao explained that jade body is a rare treasure that can be used to restore qi. If a person takes it as a pill, he can improve his skills. If a person is full of qi, then the skills will increase and the level will increase, which can be useful. Meng Changji realized that this was a good thing. The guy leaned towards his prisoner, and he said that then he should give him the jade body. Tang Sanbao admitted that they were hidden, but he would take him there. They found a jade body in an abandoned house. The guy held it in his hands and felt his body fill with energy. Tang Sanbao turned to the guy. He said that he could not fake such a thing, and Madame Lu is now in the Meng mansion. Sanbao said it might be dangerous to go back, but the guy arrogantly declared that he would decide for himself. Ben de Miao was glad that they didn't go home right away, but the guy said he was going to go there anyway. He clutched the jade body in his hands and said that he was going to pretend to be an unsuspecting lamb. After interrogation, Meng Changji ordered the member to keep an eye on Tang Sanbao. He happily took on the task. After that, the guy sneaked into the Meng mansion. It turned out that the Meng family did not respond to the ransom. Instead, he buried his eldest son in advance. The guy saw the old servant and was glad that he saw Fu Bo. The demon asked who he was, and the guy explained that he looked after him as a child. And then they heard someone coming. It was the second gentleman and his minions. They came to teach him a lesson. Fu Bo said that he met all the requirements and served the Meng family unwaveringly, and the second lady shouldn't treat other servants like that. The young man got angry and decided to remind the old man who is now the head of the family, deciding that the demotion was not enough for him. Zhou Zhou asked who the man was who was speaking so rudely to the old man, and the guy recognized him as Meng Changming, the half-brother of this body. Meng Changming left, but ordered his henchmen to teach the old man a lesson. Ben de Miao began to worry that Fu Bo was about to be beaten, but Changji was calm and told her not to worry. He concentrated the energy around his finger and summoned a wind that he could control. The wind blew out all the candles in the room and scared Changming's henchmen. All three began to look up and tried to understand who was there and why it had become so cold. The demon asked when he learned to release chi energy like that. The guy replied that after receiving the third level of power, control improved. Fu Bo began to cry and asked if the spirit of the eldest son was here. Changming's henchmen were afraid of the ghost and hurried to get out of the room. For all this the guy received about 10 points. The guy was pleased with himself and asked how Fu Bo was doing. The demon said that he was still pouring water from the evil spirits. Fu Bo said that the owner had a strange illness and everyone should now listen to the second lady and her son. Meng Changji now understood why the second lady wanted to get rid of him. To strengthen power, you need to get rid of all your loyal servants and your eldest son. Fu Bo continued to say that the second son had harmed the Guihai family, and the mistress forced the servants to take his blame upon themselves. He said that many industries of the Meng family were appropriated by the Guihai family, and he could not do anything about it. Meng Changji decided to encourage Fu Bo. Zhou Zhou thought that he wanted to tell him that he was alive, but the guy started pretending to be a ghost and called Fu Bo. The old servant looked up and asked if it was true about the eldest son. The ghost told Fu Bo that he returned because of injustice, and he asked the servant to help him fix everything. Fu Bo said that the old servant should listen to the eldest son's instructions. The next morning, the henchman made excuses that there really was a ghost in the hall last night, but the second son did not believe them. Mrs. Lu tried to calm him down, but to no avail. One of the guests thought that Meng Changming was just a dummy and most of the family's responsibilities fell on his shoulders. His main rival today was Ji Chengguo. He was handsome and girls loved him. Suddenly, screams were heard from the crowd of servants with placards. They demanded justice, that the money they had earned be returned. Mother's request. He was angry with her too, even when she asked him not to fall into the young man fell to the floor. He was in tears and asked his brother for forgiveness for he suggested we meet and have a drink together. All the guests were scared of the ghost, and then was angry that Fu Bo brought a charlatan who scared the Meng family. The servant tried to just that Lady Meng hired him. People whispered that the monk was extraordinary and that Fang Qingguan would take part in the fairy gate this year. The eldest son of the Guihai family looked at the monk man who thirsts for death. Fu Bo was scared and shouted to the eldest son of the Meng family. Ben de Miao supported Changji, and he defeated the monk with one blow. All the guests were of the Meng family. The eldest son said that he would resolve all the family's issues and asked that they did not expect Meng Changzi to be so strong. The guy who planned to lead the Meng take away the Meng family's property, but the guy did not doubt his abilities. The carriages began to move away from the Meng family's house. The frightened servant tried to apologize to Mr. Meng Changji sat in the hall of his house, surrounded by his family and servants. He looked at if they shouldn't have called the doctor when Dad got sick, but it turned out that the doctors did not know what was wrong with him. One of the servants overheard the conversation outside the door, from the shrewd eldest son of the Meng family. Zhou Zhou also told him about this, and said that she had recently returned from practice. The guy suggested Kakin's son was inspired and said that as long as Dad loves him more, they can get away with all the stood at first glance when they were trying to deceive her. Assistant Li Feilei was about to go back to her hut when she heard strange sounds coming from the foot of the mountain. This was the second son of the mirror and asked him to wipe off his sweat first. The young man turned around and was surprised when he saw the assistant and began to ask for help for his father. He said that he climbed the mountain on foot to prove the sincerity of his intentions. The assistant gasped and said that she would never have thought that he was so sincere. The guy was already happy that everything worked out. But she said that Dr. Li already had a waiting list and he might not even hope to see her now. The second son of the Meng family was very upset by the news. Ben de Miao noticed that in order to visit her, she had to do a lot of work, and the guy said that her reputation is impeccable, so they know this and are trying to sign up. The rich people were upset that Dr. Li's assistant saw through their plan. One of the guys suggested just buying a hanging pot, but due to the fact that Dr. Li does not go outside the door, this was not possible. Meng Changji thought that because the doctor often visited herself, her disappearance was not even noticed. While the second son went to make a second attempt, Zhou Zhou noticed that Dr. Li did not act like an ordinary person. Meng Changming bowed to his assistants and asked for help, and his servants tried to prove that he was sincere. But the assistant just smiled and said that she had done everything she could, and the rest was up to Dr. Li. The rest of the people on the mountain were whispering that in fact they had already been denied. The second son was very upset. He heard his brother's voice telling him that sincerity alone was not enough in this matter. Meng Changji stood in front of him and said that it was good that he did not play these games. This statement infuriated the second son, and he tried to rush at his brother, but the servants restrained him. Suddenly someone's laughter was heard. The man said that at first he didn't believe that Meng Changming came to the doctor to play games, but now he is delighted. From the whispers of the people on the mountain, it became clear that this man was the eldest son of the Gui Hai family. The servant denied the rumors that they had been trying to get to the doctor for a long time, explaining that they were not just rich people, but the most authoritative family. The eldest son, Gui Hai, said that he would think about charity towards Seven Meng. This angered Changmin, but Changji remained calm and even joked. Lord Gui Hai's servant was furious about this, but Meng Changji quickly calmed him down when he said that he just meant that they needed to meet. Meng Changji called his son Gui Hai clingy and suggested that he was in love with Dr. Li. The servant became very angry, but Mr. Gui Hai stopped him, and he said that in this case, the Meng family will deal with the doctor themselves. The eldest son of the Gui Hai family approached the assistant, and he asked me to tell you that a representative of the Guangshan government is here. He handed the girl a gold token with the inscription Guangshan. The next moment, all the people on the mountain's elder was nearby. He had to make a decision. Ben de Miao and Meng Changji came to the conclusion that he looks serious, and although he is a bit of a loser, he still cares about his father. He would be able to succeed. While the guy was walking to the gate, everyone was actively discussing. Dr. Li calmly took the bottle from her assistant's hands. Mr. Gui Hai immediately made sense, and the second son was shocked. Because Dr. Li Fei herself appeared, the guy told her that he didn't come to create problems, but simply used this method of attracting. The Meng family knew the doctor, but he had already found a topic to talk with Li Fei and had been waited impatiently for an answer. Changji replied that if he understood, then good. It turned out to be a bill for services Dr. Li had provided to him earlier. The Guy family also really wanted to participate in their conversation. Changji admitted to the demon surrounded by them. The second son began to panic, because this was the same Yin Roland. Meng Changji said that even though they had some relationship, he would not return to her lover. The leader of the bandits thought that, despite the fact that he would like to please Mr. Gui Hai, he did not intend to sacrifice his life. Lightning flashed in the eyes of Lady Yin Roland, and she asked if they hadn't heard what she said. She jumped off the mountain and screamed that this child was her prey, not her lover, and she ordered them to get out of here before she killed them. Meng Changji pretended to play along with her and admitted that he was her prey. The bandits ran as fast as they could to save their lives. Ben de Miao praised the guy for the work he had done, and she told him that now they had earned a whole bunch of points. Plus, Yin Roland had finally released her power, and Zhou Zhou was able to analyze it. The demon said that her experience was 39 points, which was the peak of level 3 strength. The lady turned to the eldest son of the Meng family, accusing him of leaving without permission. The guy decided to come to an agreement with Yin Roland, since she was stronger than him in battle, despite the fact that their level was the same. He offered her real money, but Yin Roland said that she from his family didn't even receive a coin for him. The guy confirmed this. It seemed that both Sovereign Yin Roland and Meng Changji were going to go their separate ways. Understood this, because neither side would have been able to repel this attack if they had not prepared for it in advance. The guy who had been knocked out by Li Fei suggested that this was Mr. The sneak attack failed and the woman was planning the same. Meng Changji invited her to become the daughter-in-law of the Meng family if she liked him so much. He said that he was ready to get married even today. They continued to fight, and the lady noticed that Meng Changji had also reached the 3rd level of strength. She struck again and said that she liked him even more now. The guy was thrown to the ground by force, and the demon told him that this woman uses the Baihu technique and has high defense. Zhou Zhou said that they had no chance of winning, but the guy did not agree with her. If a woman has no flaws, then they will create one. The woman attacked again, asking that Meng Changji not die. Her red chi hit the guy directly. The Meng family's subordinates watched the battle, and they saw how the eldest son Meng was trying. When he was hit, everyone was scared. Dr. Li closely monitored his chi energy. She noticed that she had only become very weak. The girl was very nervous and tried her best to convince herself that the guy would be okay. The sovereign stood in front of Meng Changji and pointed her sword at him. She noticed that the guy had used up all his energy to defend himself. She praised him for not dying, and she said that, despite the fact that she liked him, she would do the same to him as she did to the others. And then, looking him straight in the eyes, she said that he was returning to her home. Meng Changji decided to ask why such a great woman decided to grab him. He said he didn't mind being her hostage, but he was against being an uncomprehending hostage. The lady said that she would tell him. His stepmother did not want him to return before the selection began, and ordered him to be taken prisoner. Ben de Miao was surprised by this answer. After all, if the stepmother ordered Tang Sanbao to kill him, then why should Yin Roland be captured alive? The guy agreed that it was strange, but the woman had no reason to lie. A jade bodhi appeared in his hands, which completely restored his chi energy, and he said that he did not intend to be a hostage. His power sent Lady Yin Roland flying into the air. The woman was shocked and did not understand how this could happen. After all, just a few seconds ago he had no strength. But Meng Changji did not stop and continued to attack Lady Yin Roland. In a second he was behind the woman. Yin Roland was not prepared for this. Therefore, Meng Changji was able to knock the sword out of her hand using chi energy. Holding the woman by one hand, he stored chi energy in the other, turning his right hand into a weapon, and prepared to strike. He put his hand to the woman's neck and told her that, unlike hostages, he liked to win. Yin Roland didn't expect this from him. The queen's brothers immediately rushed to her aid. The guy noticed this and said that they were really very loyal. The woman admitted defeat and asked not to touch her subordinates. The guy agreed to this on the condition that she would do as he said. He leaned close to her ear and whispered his plan to her. After that, he asked her if she was ready to accept these conditions. The woman looked at the guy with interest and said that he interested her more and more, and she was ready to accept the conditions. Meng Changji let her go, and Sovereign Yin Roland ordered the release of his younger brother. Her subordinates were surprised, but obeyed. The second son of the Meng family tried to find out from his brother what he said to the woman. Meng Changji replied that he promised to marry her. The guy believed it, but when they told him it was a joke he got very angry. They finally arrived at the Meng family's house. The demon noticed that the guy's brother was a good source of points. After examination, Dr. Li said that their father was not sick, but was poisoned by a very rare poison. All of his skin will harden and eventually his body will cease to function. Ben de Miao suggested that her father was poisoned by her stepmother, but the guy doubted it. He decided that this was done by someone who wanted to get rid of the Meng family. The demon was very angry, and the guy promised that he would find a way to find out who it was, but first he needed to save his father. He asked Li Fail what the antidote was. She replied that they would need a very rare herb that could not be found even outside the gates. The second son volunteered to go outside the gate to persuade the monks to help, but one of his subordinates reminded him that these drugs were not outside the gates. Changji said that if this herb is listed in the formula, it means it can be found somewhere. Dr. Li confirmed his guesses and said that she was growing in a place where there were many dead soldiers. She said that there are no such places near their city, but Zhou Zhou and the guy remembered that they had recently been to a similar place. Dr. Li wrote out a prescription that could prolong the life of the head of the Meng family. At this time, the eldest son of the Meng family decided to meditate in order to use the points that had accumulated over all this time. Ben de Miao was glad that they had accumulated as many as 6,666 points. The guy did the math and said that this should be enough for 3 levels, and he was not sure whether he could defeat the Wind of Exile. Ben de Miao started leveling up and the points were really only enough for 3. The demon asked how the guy knew how long the glasses would last. He said they are increasing proportionately. Zhou Zhou thought about it, and the system began improving by 3 levels. The guy meditated and thought that although he wanted to improve everything in one go, he still had to improve each level separately. He felt a large amount of chi energy accumulate in his body. His level increased due to such a large accumulation. Changji was surprised that even though he had only increased by one level so far, the difference in strength was already very large. The demon began to explain to him how the 9 levels of Qi work. She said that every 3 levels are one stage. From the first to the 3rd levels, this is the basic stage. When a person gathers enough Qi energy, he makes a breakthrough. From the 4th to the 6th level, the next stage of transformation begins. At this stage, it is necessary to condense and purify one's own Qi until it is tangible and indestructible. The guy thought that the priest did something similar at the funeral, but the demon explained to him that he only thickened his blood, barely strengthening his body. And Qigong energy is not just an accumulation of energy. A person who develops Qigong, even if it is an accidental blow, as long as it is released, he has enormous power. The guy received the 4th level of power and realized that the sensation was completely different compared to the previous 3 levels. Ben de Miao explained that at the 4th level, blood already begins to turn into Qi energy. He should take a course on Qi energy management. But the guy didn't listen to her and immediately put his new powers into practice. After the guy struck, he realized that this Qi power really had an unfamiliar feeling and was thinking about practicing it. The demon got angry and asked how this feeling was unfamiliar to him. She thought that since they were connected by this energy of the brilliant predecessor, could it be said that the energy of Ben de Miao was transferred to him? While she was thinking about this, the transition to the 5th level began. The guy asked what would happen next, and the demon explained that when he reached the 6th level, all his Qi would turn into Qigong. The guy felt energy flowing throughout his body and he finally reached the 6th level of power. Ben de Miao looked in surprise at the glow emanating from the guy and asked if it could be. But she didn't have time to finish. A beautiful blue dragon appeared in front of them, which seemed to come from Meng Changji. Because the guy was completely shrouded in a blue glow, and the dragon towered behind him. This glow went beyond the house and seemed to reach the very sky. The girl stood on the bow of the flying ship and heard that they would soon reach San Shan. She thought that this time they should attract good students for the teacher first, but then it seemed to her that she felt a breakthrough in the level. The girl wondered if this power could come from a random practitioner, then she definitely should have tried to bring him to the teacher. A man stood in the sky on a flying sword. His name was Men Shao. He raised his hand in a spell and many different swords appeared around him. He directed them all to the ground, ordering them to fly down. A city that seemed busy with its usual activities. Suddenly its inhabitants looked up and saw many swords flying at them. Someone noticed that they looked like Xiang swords. When the swords were already stuck into the ground, the man realized that it was the swords and the San who chose the participants for the Xiang Myn. It turned out that to participate it was necessary to get a magic sword from the ground, and everyone who considered themselves worthy tried to do it. A man surrounded by flying swords, himself standing on one of the similar ones, announced that the selection for Xiang Myn was beginning. The guy and the demon tried to understand what happened. Ben de Miao said that she heard that people with special powers can show visible strength when they break through levels. However, this happens really rarely, and the released energy should awaken special abilities. Zhou Zhou and the guy were surprised that they did not feel any changes. Then the guy suddenly froze and thought, and the demon asked him what happened. The guy said, since after the enhancement, energy was released, which is extremely rare, then other people could see it, they could get a lot of points. When they checked, it turned out that this was not the case. At first, Zhou Zhou was upset, but the guy stroked her and said, but now they can defeat the wind of exile and will still become stronger. When Ben de Miao stopped feeling very sad about this, a notification from the system caught their attention. They moved closer and read that they would be able to score points from those who did not expect him to have such power, and now the point system has been expanded. Zhou Zhou was surprised that if this was an expansion and improvement of the system, why didn't she feel anything then, so the guy explained to her a new way to collect points. Their conversation was interrupted by a scream. Someone called Changji and shouted that something was wrong. He was the second son of the Meng family. He said that this time, something really happened. Meng Changji asked him to calm down and tell him normally. They walked towards the exit of the house, and Changmin talked about the sword that fell from the sky. When they left the house, they saw many people around the strange golden ball. Brother said it must be Shang Qing. They explained to him that if he pulled out the sword, he would pass the selection, and Fu Bo invited him to try. Now the guy understood why his stepmother paid Yin Roland money specifically for the kidnapping. His stepmother had a plan that involved the monk she hired to take out the sword and place it in the hands of the second son. Thus, he would have passed the selection. After all, the main thing is that the sword is removed and it doesn't matter who gets it. But her plan failed because Changji turned out to be strong. Ben de Miao agreed with his conclusions. While they were talking, they received a notification about the reward, and the demon asked where it came from. Next to them, the stepmother and second son of the Meng family were arguing with each other because he called his brother. Meng Changji decided that if they could collect points even in this indirect way, it would be much easier now. Servant Fu Bo said that the eldest master always believed that his son could get to Xiangmeng. The guy received memories from the previous owner about the world of Yumen, which was divided into 5 parts. The Shangqin Gate was located at the peak of Tsangwa Mountain, in the northern part of the region. Wuxiangmyn had 8 peaks. The demon asked the guy if Qingwu Mountain didn't have 27 peaks and the Xiangming Gate wasn't originally called Shanqin. The guy said that these were just the memories of the previous owner, and they could be wrong, and decided to try to take the test. Meng Changji grabbed the hilt of the golden sword and began to pull it towards himself. When something went wrong and it surprised the eldest son of the Meng family, the sword was heavier than Meng Changji thought. He held it in his hand, and the handle seemed to absorb his chi energy. Ben de Miao explained that these were the consequences of a spell that tested the abilities of possible students. The golden sword was imbued with this spell and was able to sense the power of whoever held it. For people of the 3rd level, pulling it out will not be difficult. Since the guy was level 6, this was not a problem for him, and he easily pulled out the golden sword from the ground. Zhu Lu's boat flew calmly in the sky above Sanshan City. A large number of people gathered near the map and everyone watched the progress of the swords. The people on the ship were quarreling over who would be the first to take the person who pulled out the immortal sword. The girl said that we need to follow traditions and whoever sends him to the ship first will take him. The girls said that this year they only need the most highly qualified students, and from this day forward, she will constantly practice sword flying. Suddenly, a mark appeared on the map that the first highly skilled student had pulled out a sword from the ground. Everyone perked up and wanted to go down to the student. But Brother Qi was ahead of them all, and he was already next to this guy, who was Guo Hai's son. The girl tried to understand how he managed to get to his destination so quickly. Meanwhile, on the streets of the city, a fiery phoenix appeared in the sky, phantom of the eldest son of the Guo Hai family. The celestial being praised the guy and said that if he could pass the 2nd stage of the relic test, they would become brothers. Mr. Guo Hai was ready to enter Luogi. Feng Qi's attention was drawn to a new phantom that appeared in the sky next to them. He was larger than Mr. Guo Hai's phoenix. The phantom had 2 heads, one of a snake, and the second belonged to a turtle. Feng Qi saw that this year there was another candidate better than the one he had already found. The girls stood in front of Ji's house, and they discussed the young master. Not only was he more handsome than Master Guo Hai, but he was also stronger. Young Master Ji watched the phantom he released during the test. At the Meng estate, the family's second son and servant tried to understand what was happening. They saw first a phoenix phantom appear in the sky, and then a turtle. The demon noticed that Changji was not the only one in this city who had talent, but the guy did not find it strange that there were many talents in the world. Besides, they won't be as good as him anyway, and the next moment, Mr. Meng easily pulled the sword out of the ground. A huge phantom of a golden sword appeared in the sky, attracting the attention of all the residents of the city. The people on the ship in the sky also saw the phantom of Mr. Meng, and they noticed that with the appearance of the divine sword, the other 2 phantoms instantly disappeared, as if the sword scared them away. No one could remember this ever happening before. When the guy turned to his little sister to say that they needed to quickly go and find this student, the girl was no longer around. People were discussing the appearance of a sword phantom above the Meng family's house. They argued whether it was the monk or the eldest son of the Meng family, and they tried to understand whether this meant that Meng Changji was stronger than the representatives of the Ji and Guo Hai families. The demon looked at the phantom sword and couldn't believe that the guy really did it. And then suddenly she had an epiphany. After all, just now the phantom of the sword above the Meng house that Changji made was seen by the whole city. He shocked everyone, which means they earned a lot of points, and with such ease. The phantom disappeared, and the guy wondered why his appearance was different this time. The demon explained that he was influenced by the spell the warrior's spirit recognizes the source. Meng Changji felt something approaching him from above at great speed. The guy and the demon looked at the sky and saw something similar to a monk flying on a sword flying towards them. Taking a closer look, they realized that the monk on the flying sword should look a little different. There was a terrible roar, and it attracted the attention of everyone present in the Meng house. Everyone rushed to check if Mr. Meng was okay, and they asked why the sword was flying at him if he won the test. When the haze cleared, they saw the silhouette of Changji still standing. The girl who fell from the sky hugged him. She said that she caught the guy and now she can take him for herself. The guy said that although the fortune teller predicted good luck with the opposite sex, he did not expect the girls to fly into his hands. The girl jumped away from the guy and started waving her arms. She said that he understood everything wrong. The conversation was interrupted by another voice, who also wanted to negotiate cooperation with Meng Changji. It was the guy on the flying ball. He introduced himself as Zhongwu. He said his peak was Mei Yin, and he expressed his desire to invite the guy to their summit. Suddenly there was a loud cry asking to wait another minute, which attracted the attention of everyone present. This was the same man who invited the Guo Hai family member. He promised that after joining Luogi they would become brothers. Feng Qi had to dodge the swords flying at him. A lot of celestial beings appeared and they were all arguing about whose pinnacle Meng Changji would get. The girl blocked the guy from coming with her and said that he had already chosen Daonian, and brothers must follow the rules. But instead, the brothers reminded her that a person has the right to choose the peak until he boards the ship of one of them. The guy turned to Ben de Miao and started saying that popularity is annoying. The demon was worried that they would fight for him. The guy looked at them and reassured Zhou Zhou. He said that while he was here they would not fight. The girl said that she would not give up the guy so easily, and she was ready to fight for him, but the brothers didn't look scared. The quarrel was stopped by Meng Changji's voice, which ordered him to stop. He said that all three of them were too verbose, and did not even ask him which peak he wanted to climb. The three looked at him in shock and tried to understand what he was even talking about. The eldest son of the Meng family pulled a chair towards him with an unwavering face. He sat down and said that he would choose where to join, and they should fight for him, not choose instead of him. He invited them to demonstrate their abilities so that he could choose. With this statement, he frightened everyone present in the main house. Some of the Celestials considered this arrogant, but Junwu said that this person could afford such behavior. Feng Qi laughed and said that no one had ever entered Xiangmeng with such a high level, therefore, the idea to adjust the rules has its place. Everyone accepted the rules, only the girl was confused by this turn of events. Changmin tried to bring his mother to her senses, and our main character earned a lot of points. While Zhou Zhou was happy with the points she received, Meng Changji said that the Celestials could begin their performance. As a result, each of the Celestials began to introduce the characteristics and advantages of their peak. The demon asked how the guy could remain so calm when meeting people from Xiangmeng. Changji said that they behave like ordinary people. Zhongwu started first. He said that Mei Yin is controlled by the chief of the three elders of the peak, who knows alchemy. Moreover, the master is only familiar with cultivating various celestial herbs. Their top grows the finest rare herbs. Each student of the Mei Yin peak is provided with free elixirs and all herbs for practice. Changji asked for the next representative. Zhou Zhou really liked the first peak. The second representative appeared in front of them with a loud thud. He smiled widely and said that Luoga's most important feature is strength. None of those present were impressed by this statement from Feng Qi. The guy said that their master is second elder Shangqing, and his level is second only to the leader. Next to him, everyone can become an excellent fighter. But what was more important was that the master had siligamania, therefore, they had a large amount of treasure, many scrolls and magical weapons. Students at the top were provided with magical items made to order. Ben de Miao liked this peak too. The guy asked the last person to speak and present his peak. The girl was a little confused. Zhongwu began to speak for her. He said that Elder Daonian is always indifferent to the cultivation of his disciples. Feng Qi confirmed that at that peak, students only engage in self-study. Everyone called the elder useless. The girl from Dongyang Peak was very angry when she heard that her elder was being insulted. So after a few more angry remarks, she took out her sword and ordered everyone to stop insulting her master. But before a fight could break out, they were stopped by Changji's voice. He said that even though the girl from the top did not introduce it herself, he had already understood everything from the words of others. The girl from the top of Daonian was very upset and angry because the student she caught would go to others. Brother Qi was confident that magical artifacts were an important attribute, and he would definitely choose to top it. And Zhongwu had no doubt that alchemy and herbs were useful for practice, so he would choose Mei Yin. Meng Changji thanked all the representatives and said that he chooses Daoyan. This unexpected turn of events shocked the girl from Daoyan Peak. Zhongwu was also shocked, and other students from the top decided that he was mocking them. Feng Qi said that if he had his eye on the beauty, then they also have them on the tops. Ben de Miao decided that the guy was joking to earn a lot of points. After all, there were many people here who did not expect such a decision. Fu Bo asked the gentleman to think better, because his path to improvement depended on it, but the guy said that he had already decided. When Zhou Zhou heard this, she was shocked, and she couldn't believe that the guy really chose Daoyan Peak. The girl asked if he really decided to join them, and Changji confirmed his words. Ben de Miao couldn't understand why, out of alchemy and magical artifacts, he chose the most stupid peak. The guy reminded her that she was a demon. And the people from the Xiang Myn gate exterminate the demons, and if they find her, they will destroy her. Therefore, in order to avoid such an outcome of events, he chose Daoyan. Zhou Zhou admitted that she had completely forgotten that she was a demon. Other tops accepted his choice and left the guy. The girl from the top of Daoyan said that she hoped the gentleman would not regret his choice. She gave him a token with Daoyan written on it, and she said that now he is her younger brother. The girl said that tomorrow they are going to a flying ship, which is located on the outskirts of the city of Xianshan. She asked him not to be late. Meng Changji told Ben de Miao that elixirs and magical artifacts are just things, and Zhou Zhou is the only one who deserves trust. The demon was overjoyed that the guy valued her so highly. At a small distance from everyone else there was a small house. The guy held the hilt of the sword and said that the selection would only last until tomorrow. The boy was confident that he could become a student. When suddenly there was a naked woman behind him asking if he could pick up a sword, the boy got scared and asked who she was. But the strange woman ordered him to be quiet. She ordered them to calm down and said that they would finally pass the magic circle and make their way into the city. She extended her hand to the hilt of the sword, which the boy was already holding, and she said that apparently the monks discovered the sister, and she was unable to complete the task. On the second day after Shang Qin lowered the magic sword, the people who passed the first selection arrived early according to the instructions. After the sound signal from Shang Qin, which will sound throughout the city, the second qualifying round will open the door for passage. Ben de Miao noticed that in addition to those who had crossed over, they would see off relatives. Almost 100 more people came. His brother Changmin approached the guy, and asked what he said to Uncle Fu before leaving that made him look so surprised. The guy remembered what he told him then, but he replied that it was nothing to worry about, just a small experiment. Zhou Zhou enjoyed the points she got from a distance. Servant Fu stood in the middle of the courtyard of Meng's house, and he tried to understand why the gentleman said to tell the second lady that the Celestials killed the Meng brothers. Because of this information, the second lady fainted. When she came to her senses, the servant said that the elder failed, but the younger was able to pass the selection. Hearing this, the second lady fainted again, and only when she came to her senses for the second time was the servant able to tell her the truth. Fu Bo didn't understand why the second lady needed to come to her senses and faint so many times in a row. After such unrest, Mrs. Lu repented and asked to surrender. She promised that she would listen to his orders and asked him not to joke like that again. Ben de Miao was glad that they completed the mission objective so quickly. All that remained was to cure the head and return the family business. Once they complete this mission they will be able to unlock the Harmony, Immortal Quest. A voice sounded in the heads of everyone participating in the second stage of selection. He congratulated us on passing the first round. Meng Changming asked what this voice in the head technique was, but the elder brother said that now the announcement of the rules begins and we must listen. Chenggu Ji listened to the instructions and wishes for good luck in the selection, after which the guy said that he would definitely restore the position of the Ji family. The voice began to talk about the world of IG, that IG does not depend on this world. Its nature and content are different, it is full of possibilities and contains rare treasures, birds and animals. He said that with the revival of the aura, magical ruins appeared. They open every time the earth spirit is active. Each opening lasts 10 days, and the time of the next opening should be calculated based on the aura around the ruins. The concentration of the aura in the ruins will gradually increase over time. It will reach its maximum on the last day and the creatures in the ruins will become stronger. If you enter the ruins on the first day, you can clear everything within 12 hours. In addition, the Shang Qin disciples entered the ruins in advance and created 4 safe zones. Therefore, if someone wants to refuse, they can follow the signs and go to the safe zone. Everyone was also given a jade pendant in case of an emergency. If it is broken, students will come from the heights and help cope with the danger. Everyone who passed the first selection held a jade pendant in their hands and understood that this was a very useful thing. After reading the rules, the selection of students who will take the test began. Meng Changji realized that they would pass through the ruins after the other disciples. Ben de Miao said that this aura was familiar to her and remembered that it was thanks to her that the mountain demon acquired that strong form. Meng Changji also remembered that mountain demon in the body of the red-haired gibbon. Zhou Zhou did the calculation. She snapped her fingers and said that they would need 10 days to unlock the Harmony, Immortal mission. But the guy said they could do it in 3 days. Ben de Miao was very surprised, and she asked how the guy was going to return all the Meng family's businesses in 3 days. Meng Changji said that the person who took them away will come here himself. Mr. Guihai came and greeted the eldest son of the Meng family. Changji thanked Mr. Guihai for taking care of his younger brother and for temporarily looking after the Meng family's businesses. The second son screamed and could not understand why his brother was thanking this man. After all, he lied to him and forced him to sign an agreement, with the help of which the Meng family lost half of the property. The second son was hit on the head so as not to interfere with the negotiations, and Changji said that the time had come to return possession. At this, Guihai just laughed. He said to make sure Meng Changji didn't lose in the ruins or the whole city would know about his reputation. The guy was not going to back down and offered to make a bet since Mr. Guihai felt so confident. They bet that Mr. Meng could qualify for all of the Meng family's property. Guihai said that he has most of the Meng family's holdings and is not satisfied with his bid. Meng Changji handed over the bottle of medicine and said that it was made by Dr. Li himself. He also said that this bottle has her kiss on it. The guy shook the bottle in front of Mr. Guihai and asked if this was enough. Guihai blushed, cleared his throat and said that if Mr. Meng so wants to give him all the property, then he is not against it. The demon asked where he got the bottle from, and even with a kiss, and the guy told her that this was a common medicine, and he made it all up. Thus, Guihai and Changji made a bet and even signed. Guihai said that an agreement is worth more than money and said that he would definitely need this medicine from Dr. Li. The crowd of students had finally gathered. The girl looked at the crowd and tried to find the one in it. The monk hired by the second lady was about to meditate to recharge his energy when he heard strange discussions behind him. He listened as the young people behind him described something thick and long. The monk did not understand how this applied to him. The second son said that the phantom sword was made by a Taoist. The guy who was told this came to the conclusion that the monk was great, not Meng Changji. The second son confirmed the guesses and called Changji mediocrity. He offered the guy a golden ticket and asked him to stop Meng Changji from passing the test. The guy agreed, and Meng Changming promised to give a double reward for fulfillment. Mr. Meng watched as another guy fell for his brother's stories. The demon did not understand why they were giving them money. And the guy explained to her that this is called an investment. He told her to imagine that she was planting money and then reaping a huge harvest. Ben de Miao asked how much money they would receive when they harvested the crops. The guy replied that it depends on how much his brother plants. At that moment, the gates of the ruins opened, and the participants went to study them. When they entered the ruins, the guy realized that they had moved to the outskirts, but they needed to go to the center. The demon noticed that the ruins were quite large and it would be difficult for them to find Binggu Chao alone. Just at that moment one of the bribed guys appeared. He introduced himself as Ling Yao Tian, and she said that she would not let him pass the test. Ben de Miao and Meng Changji were also happy to see him. The guy was shocked and couldn't understand why he was so strong. The guy lost to Changji, and now listened that he would owe him 10 million liang of silver, and would also be his servant in ruins. The guy agreed to go through the ruins. Meng Changji showed him a drawing of the herb they were looking for and said that if he found it, the debt would be cancelled. Before they had time to finish the conversation, a new trio appeared who wanted to prevent the gentleman from passing the selection. When Mr. Meng refused to give up, they threatened him that they would now deal with him in a bad way. But the same fate awaited them as the first guy, and Changji continued to get points. The three of them sat on their knees in front of Mr. Meng and listened to the same conditions as the first guy. Then Changji got tired of repeating himself, and he transferred it to Lin, and the demon looked at what the fruits of their investment looked like. The first guy shouted at the three that they had now become Mr. Meng's servants in these ruins. He showed them the drawing and said that if they found Binggu Chao, then their debt would be written off. Lini was surprised that he felt good doing this job and gave the three guys a contract to sign. The guys began to realize that they had been deceived by the Meng brothers. Meanwhile, the ruins in Xian Shan City had already been passed. This year it was very easy to choose them. In past times, to find ruins, you had to look hard. The girl thanked the guy for saving her from the skeletons. He said it was his. After all, if someone dies during the selection process, it will be very bad. The girl asked the guy what it was, and he replied that it was just an altar created in order to isolate the core of the ruins and seal the threat. The girl lowered her eyes and thought that the aura seemed very familiar to her. The monks flew in the sky on their swords, and one of them said that if he calculated everything correctly, then in 2 days the gate of the forbidden immortal emperor would be the weakest. Ming Xiao was ordered to lead disciples to guard the central area of the ruins. One of the monks created a seal in the air, calling it the flowering of life. Meng Changji and Beng De Miao went further and further into the depths, but Binggu Chao was never found. The guy suggested they have some fun while they were looking for grass, and the demon was too scared of the skeletons. She said that she couldn't imagine how the guy was going to have fun with someone here, and Changji felt that someone was approaching them. Changji saw Mr. Gue Hai and said that he wouldn't even have to look. After all, he had already come to him himself. The guy realized that he could collect a lot of points from this guy. Mr. Gue Hai noticed that the further you go, the stronger the monsters. It's good that he thought about this in advance. Suddenly, Gue Hai heard his name called. To his surprise, it was Meng Changji's voice. He stood on the ledge of the mountain, and he suggested that he destroy his jade pendant so that he could win. Mr. Gue Hai was surprised that the guy had gone so far, but he did not refuse the offer. A whole army appeared behind him. He said that all these people are of the 3rd level of power. Changji, who was at the peak of the 3rd level, would not be able to defeat them. Ben De Miao was angry that they were going to attack in a crowd, but the guy was amused by the fact that Gue Hai was completely weakened. He said that the lack of qi was a big problem and asked if he should consult Diar Li. Changji asked how he could help. Gue Hai got angry and said that if he thought he could find his faults, then he was too naive. Meng Changji showed boredom with all his appearance and said that they needed to try to cope with him. Gue Hai ordered the guys to attack and shouted that in this case his jade pendant would be destroyed. All members of the Gue Hai family were preparing for victory, and a celebration in honor of the disappearance of the Meng family. Changji said that he would only need one thing to deal with them all at once. But all the fighters still rushed to attack him from all sides. But the guy was not impressed or frightened at all. He concentrated all the energy in his right hand and then released it. The release of chi energy threw all the attackers away from him a great distance. Even Mr. Gue Hai, who stood farthest away, was blown away by the gust of this force. Mr. Meng Changji's blue lightning could be seen all around. The eldest son of the Gue Hai family could not understand how this happened. He was kneeling in one of the ditches created by this release of chi power. Mr. Meng told the guy not to worry about his subordinates. He used the skill in such a way as not to kill anyone. After all, you need to get points, and this can only be done with living people. Mr. Gue Hai began to rise from his knees and asked what tricks Meng Changji used. He turned to him and said that the whole secret was in the strike with the release of chi. This skill does not have naming, but if he wants, he can name it. Mr. Gue Hai came to the realization that this was an ordinary blow. The eldest son of Gue Hai fell to his knees in front of the son of the Meng family. And at that moment, Ben De Miao noticed a flower in one of the pits that Changji had created. They came closer and saw that it was the same Binggu Chao they were looking for. They realized that this grass had to be looked for underground. Meng Changji noticed that a heavy aura was approaching and doubted whether people would be able to touch this grass. The demon explained that this herb absorbs a lot of chi energy, and its properties depend on the quality of the energy. Therefore, even the weakest grass cannot be picked by an ordinary person. This flower nourished the energy of a person who died in the ruins. Beng De Miao said that as long as Changji was concentrated enough, disrupting Binggu Chao would not. An armor came from The demon asked why this skeleton suddenly came to life and raised it. Blonde explained that this was due to the unstable aura of the ruins. The girl asked what would from Downyan Peak flew on a sword with the goal of protecting her possible younger brother. Meng Guihai hurried to the skeleton and shouted that he would repay Meng Changji's debt and save. Collected grass no longer had a dark aura and could be eaten by anyone. Changji turned and asked Guihai what he said, but he began to deny it and said that it didn't matter. Asked him if he wanted to do him a favor, and Guihai agreed. As the monsters in the ruins became much stronger, the number of people who were eliminated increased sharply. Mr. Guihai stood in front of the second son of the Meng family and talked about their bet, and also handed Bing to Gu Chao. Meng Changming was very happy that his father would be saved, and Fu Bo asked Guihai how Mr. Meng was doing. A whole group of skeletons was advancing on the team of participants, and they weren't sure they could handle them. They were saved by the appearance of Mr. G, who in an instant dealt with all the skeletons and asked if they were okay. The group thanked him for saving him and they all said they would never forget his kindness. Mr. G smiled gently and said that they should all help each other, and I thought that this test was a great opportunity to buy people's hearts. Suddenly one guy from the group noticed something strange and pointed there. Those present shifted their gaze. There was a huge skeleton in armor and with a huge sword. The guys were shocked that this skeleton had excellent armor. They thought he was a general. Then they saw that someone was there, and these people unite to fight. Someone said that the best way to face fear is to overcome it. A group of guys recognized this voice. It belonged to Meng Changji. He was driven by Ling Yao Tian, while the guy was riding on this chair and fanning himself. A group of people rushed to attack the huge skeleton, shouting for Mr. Changji and Mr. Guihai. Mr. Ji was surprised that Changji managed to conquer so many people before him. The demon admired the fact that Changji simply pretended to be disabled and got so many points. Besides, he didn't even have to fight. He received a notification that the secret task had been completed and the unlocking of the Harmony Immortal mission began. Meng Changji and Ben De Miao were upset that it required a download to unlock. The huge skeleton was defeated, but something started to happen. The guys whispered to each other and tried to understand what changes had happened. Meng Changji suddenly felt anxious, and Ling Yao Tian and Zhou Zhou looked up in shock. A huge red eye began to appear in the sky. The feeling was familiar to Ben De Miao. Was it really the demon of heaven? All the people looked in shock at the strange object that suddenly appeared in the sky. Meng Changji said that the original owner of this body had never heard of such a demon. Zhou Zhou explained that it existed in ancient times. The demon said that they have no blood, no emotions, no flesh, no feelings. They destroy everything that catches their eye, and the celestial monks are not their rivals. In those days, countless heroes of the human race sacrificed themselves in battles with the demon race. And finally, the demons were completely driven out of this world. The guy thought that the Shang-Qin elders had a level higher than the celestial monks, and if they united, they should cope with the demons of heaven. Zhou Zhou said that the demons of heaven are not the ones who need to be provoked. The rest of the people could not understand what was happening. Meng Changji remembered that ordinary people don't know who the heavenly demons are. The demon told him not to worry as demons would not be able to appear here. But the guy was still worried. After all, they were in ruins, where everything is not so simple. Ben De Miao explained that although these are ruins, they are connected to the world and should theoretically reject the demons of heaven. Suddenly an eye in the sky opened wide and said that the crossing of the border had begun. He said that the gates were opening. Ben De Miao said that even though he would open the portal, he would still not be able to enter the ruins. A teleport has opened on the ground, and the eye in the sky said that this time, thanks to strategic thoughtfulness, the gate allows one to pass through the border. A demon appeared from the teleporter, and Ben De Miao couldn't understand how this was possible, and why was the demon of heaven able to break into the human world. The heaven demon slowly opened his eyes. They were bright red. A whole wave of destructive force formed around him, and the air around was filled with a demonic aura. People began to be carried away in different directions, and no one could understand what was happening or who this person was. Mr. G felt the influence of the demonic aura and realized that a high-class demon had appeared. Meng Changji asked Zhou Zhou why the others were staring so closely, and she explained that they were shocked by the power of the demon's chi energy. Ben De Miao boasted that she was a demon saint who was connected to the guy and therefore the guy would not be shocked. Suddenly the guy felt depressed, and Zhou Zhou was shocked. The guy said that since he still doesn't know the origin and purpose of this demon, then the best choice is to hide in the ordinary world and avoid trouble. Ben de Miao remembered that there were several factions of demons and this one could be her enemy. The demon said that it looks like he came on time and there are a lot of people gathered here. He made great efforts to find the best place. The demon extended his hand forward, and a strange red energy made all the people around freeze in place. People found themselves trapped in balls. They tried to break the jade pendant, but it did not react at all. Meng Changji also found himself in the transfer ball. Zhou Zhou said that she hated such magic. The demon heard someone shouting at him and ordering him to stop. He turned his gaze to the ground to see who dared to tell him what to do. It was a celestial woman from the top of Daonian. She said that the demon would not dare to touch anyone while she was here. The demon of heaven rushed past the girl at high speed, striking. She stepped back from the sword. And she began to fall, after which she found herself in the same ball as all the other people. Meng Changji noticed that he had killed the girl with just one blow and wondered if it was even possible to stop him. Ben de Miao said she didn't have a chance, and the demon of heaven sank to the floor. He looked at the place where he stood and said that the aura comes from here, which means there is a gate to another world. Feng Qi asked if the ruins had been taken over by monsters, and Zhong Wu said that when this guy appeared, all the protective magic collapsed.